Hey, welcome to the 181st episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patrons Colin Levy and Josh Castleman. I'm Oren Kaplan.
And I'm Matt Enlow. Today we've got Jennette McCurdy on. You may know her from her acting career as a star of iCarly and Sam and Cat, but she's become a director since you last saw her. So we sit down and talk to her about all of the things that she learned as a young child actor, kind of at the top of her game, and what appeals to her about directing and why she decided to make this big pivot.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, as we're talking to these actors turned directors, she's been on hundreds of episodes of TV as well. And just coming in as a new director, you have just like a totally different background than your average director.
Yeah, I think she's logged so many hours in front of the camera. It's really interesting to hear what she has to say and how that's informed her approach behind the camera.
Yeah, she also asked us a lot of questions, which is kind of refreshing. But the question she asked us off the mic after she left, I thought was one of the most interesting ones, which was which of your past work is
most proud of.
Or you're most proud of.
Yeah.
And it's like just such a hard question to answer, for me at least, because it's like you're being put on the spot to be like, oh, go watch this thing of mine. And for a lot of us, like you and me, like some of the stuff we're most proud of is kind of older, because that's the time when we were really like making our own stuff or things that we were really driving from scratch.
You know, my passion project is the second Toyota spot in that series of 4.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. That's the goal, right? Is that like everything is the passion project.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, before we talk to Jennette, let's catch up a little bit. You had a big pitch yesterday.
I did have a big pitch. Listeners of the show will remember that I sold something kind of a while ago now.
Was that a futon? I think I saw it on Craigslist.
Yeah, it was an old mattress, but, you know, I propped it up so it looked like a couch too. No, I sold a series kind of a while ago. And
when you say sold, do you get money?
Yes. Yeah, I got money. So basically, I optioned it with this company so that they had the exclusive right to sell that show to networks, basically. And so I worked with them to put together, a package and kind of refine the script and all that stuff. And we finally went and pitched it to a television network yesterday. And it's a really interesting, fascinating sort of thing. I've pitched plenty of things, and I think by the time you get to pitching a network, you've talked about this show ad nauseum, right? Like you have to sell your team on it first, and then you have to, sell a company on it, and like then you have to tell the story of the show so many times that by the time you're actually in front of a network, it's pretty well hardwired.
Do you find that it's hard to be excited about it?
No, not at all. Yeah, that's the easiest part. I was so excited. Yeah. I mean, I think that nervous and excited are bedfellows, and I found myself feeling maybe more nervous than I've felt in a long time, because most of the time when I'm pitching something, the stakes are a little lower, but like it had been a little bit since I'd been to a TV network, and this is a show that I really care about, and the show is specific enough that there were fewer places to take it than normal. So like their stakes are higher, basically.
Right.
But what's interesting to me about it, and it really struck me on the drive home, because I did the whole thing, right? Like I practiced it a bunch of times with my team and, with the people that bought it. And, I meditated beforehand and I visualized, and I really, I wrote like a really strong outline for all of the things that I was going to say, and really, put all of the effort that one needs to really nail it into the pitch.
But how much time did you spend looking in a mirror, like deep into your soul?
I mean, I did meditate though, genuinely, so I did the slightly more practical version of the TV version of you psyching yourself up. Like I went there, I was like, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to take the day. I'm really going to dig in and do an awesome job, because I feel like the times where I've really gotten myself in the right headspace to execute, I do.
Right.
And
then one last dumb question.
Yeah.
Did you play like Eye of the Tiger or anything before you?
I did play music. Yeah, I did play music.
Before you went in for
Before I went in, yeah, for sure.
Are you familiar with power poses?
There was a TED Talk on them, right?
Yeah, probably.
Not enough to have gone there, but I would have. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Like I was like, I'm going to have an open mind. I'm just going to like do what it takes to be ready. And I reread the script the morning of and was like pleasantly reminded by how much I like it. And
This
how
is
proud
the pilot script
the
of the
pilot
show you
script,
were
yeah.
pitching.
Yeah, and that I was proud of it, you know? And so it was like a nice reinforcement of like, oh, I can do this. And then I went in and, you know, pitched my heart out, and I think I did a pretty darn good job.
How many tears were there at the end of the pitch?
None, but I got plenty of laughs, and it was kind of a tougher room. And, you know, at the end they said, hey, well pitched. You know, everyone was smiling. They had good, thoughtful questions. All of which is to say that I'm not bragging about the performance that I did. My point is that I did everything right, and I still may not sell this show.
Yeah.
Like, I dotted every I and crossed every T. And, like, you know, on the drive home, I was like, there's that letdown, right? Because it is a performance. You know, you're talking nonstop for 20, 30 minutes and then answering questions. And, you know, then there's like there's the wrap up where, like, you know, your team kind of huddles up and they talk about, okay, well, next steps will be this, and we'll follow up the next day, and, you know, we'll hear back in 2 or 3 weeks or whatever it is, right? And I'm just driving home and I'm like, well, that's that. And maybe they already bought all of the shows they're going to buy this season. Or maybe, like, somebody doesn't like it.
Well, at the very least, you know that at least like 10 people or so were excited to hear you talk about your show. So
Yeah.
ultimately, there is an audience that has come to your show. Hopefully it goes beyond those 10 people.
Sure. Yeah. It's so interesting, though, to kind of, like, be faced with that. And I think that people talk about gatekeepers all the time, and we talk about it on the show a little bit as well. And every single person that I have had the privilege of talking to about the show has been really supportive and really open and interested and curious, you know? And so everyone that I've met is like a fan of making things, and it's still an uphill battle. And so we talk about it a little bit with Jennette in the episode, but I think it's put me in a funny headspace where I'm like just really kind of circling back to the just shoot it mentality.
Well, my thing that always like spooks me is that if you pitch your show and it's a great pitch and they like the show, and then someone else pitches like has a pitch that's like 10% worse, but they have an actor, you know, a famous
someone's
TV
attached
actor
to
attached.
it. Yeah, totally.
Then like why
would they pick mine?
Yeah, like you have to be so much better than any show that has any attachments. And if there's an attachment, chances are they're not that bad, you know?
Yeah.
That's to me like the stressful part about TV. And so I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it for the sake of our listeners. When do you hear back?
2 to 3 weeks is what my team said, but that's based purely off of their experience with this network.
Oh, okay.
So that's not like they're not informed with the fact that, like, oh, well, they have their Friday meetings or whatever, or their Monday meetings, and they'll probably circulate it and then, you know, circle back up a week or two after, which is, I think, the rhythm of those places. Like, I didn't pitch the entire team. So that team member will say, hey, you know, this is the show that I heard. I think X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
You all should read it.
Pitch.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at right now. It's interesting. It's exciting. It's very complicated emotionally, I will tell you what.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk about something that you're also involved in, and that we touch on in the in this episode. But we are both jurors for the
Hell's Half Mile
Film Festival in Michigan.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. It's my first time. No, it's my second time being a jury member, but I've only been a juror for shorts before, and now we're jurying everything.
Yeah, you're so much further ahead than I am. I haven't watched anything.
Which is shocking to me, because I'm the one with a 3-year-old kid, and
yeah,
you know, the wife that doesn't want to watch independent films.
Yeah,
with me.
How have you been watching them?
Well, all the shorts I watched on my computer. I think the average length was like 15 minutes, and there was 5 of them. So I watched them all. And then there's 8 feature films, which I didn't know like how this works. I guess like a film festival will nominate the programmers who've watched every movie that was submitted.
Yeah, they'll narrow it down.
Yeah. Right. Well, I guess they probably watched all the selections, at least that are going to play the festival. Yeah. And then they nominate movies for best movie, best actor, best actors, like all those things. And then they have the jury watch those movies. So of the 8 movies, I think I've watched 4 so far. and we get these private screener links for them, and I just play them on my laptop and AirPlay them to my TV. So I've been watching them on like in my living room on my TV.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a great way to say it.
It's been great. I watched a movie of one of our previous guests.
I know which movie.
Yeah, and it was fun seeing it on the screen, and yeah, it's just like it just reminded me about indie film because I have not really watched a lot of independent films lately.
Did you feel inspired?
Yeah, both inspired and also like discouraged by like
because you wouldn't watch them if you didn't.
I mean,
that's not a
right, not
about,
a slight on the films.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. It's just like that viewing habits have shifted.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
Even the way I'm choosing which movie to watch, I'm like, well, this one's 110 minutes. This one's 75 minutes. I'm going to watch 75-minute one.
Like, I got the easy ones first. Yeah.
And then also, like, is there anyone I've heard of in this movie? No. Or, like, kind of heard. Like, I don't know. I just find myself just as, like, someone that is ultimately going to watch all these movies, like, even before I watch them, like, looking at who made them and looking at how they're made and what their length are. And then once you watch the movie, you're like, oh, that must have taken so long to make, you know? And it's just so much work, and it's interesting. But I'm really enjoying it, actually, and I can't wait to hear what everyone else thinks. What's cool about being on a jury is everyone's going to watch the movies, and then we'll discuss what we think about them. And
will we discuss that?
I think we vote, but then we are allowed to have special jury nominations, which I think we will discuss. Like, we'll kind of, like, you can say, like, well, I think this movie should, you know, there isn't a nomination for it, but it should get a special.
Should we nominate best previous podcast guest? No, that's a pet joke.
Yeah. But yeah, and the shorts, what I like about the shorts is, like, they're all over. Like, one, like, looks like it could have cost, like, you know, $200,000, sure. And one looks like it could have cost $2. And I actually think the $2 one might be my favorite short. Anyway, I'm excited. Hell's Half Mile Film Festival.
Yeah, it's in Bay City, Michigan, September 26th through the 29th in 2019.
If you see the winners, we are part of selecting them. Yeah, so that's exciting.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out if we can make it out there. The offer's on the table. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And I guess the one last thing I want to say about the movies is I'm just like really looking for the thing in the movies that goes beyond like my expectations. You know, I don't know if it's like if it could just be a performance is really good, or like the scope, or like the visuals. I don't know. So that's like, I guess what is exciting me about seeing these movies is trying to find the parts that impress me.
Yeah.
Because some, you know, excited by. They're indie films, so they're kind of all very different and very much their own thing.
Cool. Well, it's good to catch up, Oren. It's been a minute.
Yeah. Thanks for chatting.
Yeah, of course, man.
Cool. So right before we talk to Jennette, we are going to tell you about our Patreon. Patreon.com/JustShootItPod. You can support our podcast. Give us a couple bucks a month if you'd like. If you like what you hear, if you feel like it's useful to you. If you give us $10 a month, even if for only 1 month, we will send you a free Just Shoot It podcast hat.
We are looking at the hats right now. We are sending out 2 to previous patrons. We can't wait for them to send us a selfie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
With them wearing it.
So one of the things the Patreon helps us pay for is our live events, and we're having another one on October 20th. It's going to be our Halloween episode. We're going to have a panel of genre film directors, probably like horror film directors.
Yeah,
but it might be thrillers.
I'm going to try to get some mysteries and sci-fi in there as well. Yeah. Hopefully we can diversify a little bit. We'll see.
Yeah, we're doing it at the same place we did our last live event.
Rita House.
At Rita House, which we're super excited about going back there. And the last one was such a success that we are doing it again. So stay tuned. We are going to tweet. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram. We're everywhere. We're on social media. We'll tell people about the event, and you should come because you will win Hell's Half Mile jury award if you come. I'm just kidding.
No, but if you are a patron, you will get into that event for free. And this time around, I think I'm going to try and release a few tickets early that are for patrons only. But either way, if you're a patron, then you get into the event for free. If not, it costs a little bit of money. So, like, you can just become a patron at the $1 level and save yourself a little cash. Have some pizza and beer on us.
Okay, without any further delays, here is Jennette McCurdy. So you're part 3 of our actor/director guests.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah,
Who
we're
were the
doing-
first 2?
Well, we have Audrey Moore.
Okay.
She actually has a podcast called Audrey Helps Actors that is very popular.
Fun.
And then we had Ben Giroux.
Yeah.
Got it.
And he does a lot of
don't know
voice
him.
acting.
Yeah, a ton of voice acting.
He's been kind of moving over to the writing, directing stuff for a while.
Yeah. I feel like it's a big trend
Well-
with actors.
Well, why do you think that is?
I think that as an actor, there's a definite lack of control, and there can be a sense of a lack of creativity. It depends on who your director is and who your producers are and who the creative team is, but you don't really have much say in really anything. And I think that can be pretty soul-sucking. It was for me, at least. I'm sure there are actors who have phenomenal experiences and love everything they've done and love the creative teams they've worked with. But if you don't feel like you have any creative investment in what you're doing, then I feel like it can be pretty negative.
And do you think that might come partially from the fact that you were like a young actor?
For sure. Oh, for sure. I think that there's less trust there. I think there's less collaboration. I think you're asked your opinion less. And I had experiences with so many directors where I feel like I know what they're wanting, but I don't like that. I don't like what they want. Sometimes I'd even be unclear of what their vision was, and I'd feel that maybe they were unclear of it themselves. So it was just kind of this feeling that I had since I was very young. It was like, oh, I really want to, I would prefer to be behind the camera. I'd prefer to have more of a stake in things, more of a sense of investment, and feel more creative.
Because you played the same character on like over 100 episodes, right?
Yeah.
Of TV.
Yeah. Over 100 episodes of one show, and then there was a spinoff for my character, and I did 40 more episodes for this other show. So it was in total like almost 160 episodes of television as one character.
And so there wasn't, like 20 episodes in, you weren't in a place where you could be like, well, I don't think Sam would do that. Maybe I would say this instead.
Our producer was very, very hands-on and very, known kind of, I'm totally cool saying this because it's out there, but he's just very strict and very much knows what he wants, and he has a vision, and it's going to be that vision, which is actually how I think the best work gets made. I think a lot of people put an emphasis on there being this happy, creative, collaborative environment, and I think a singular vision is probably more important. So I think in the end, he got what he wanted, and he made good work for what it was, but as an actor, it's a little bit crippling.
Remind us just how old are you when you're kind of in the trenches on everything? Like, how old were you when you were feeling this way, especially?
13 to 21 was the time on the show, and
that is a long time.
Yeah, and by 14 was when
formative years.
Yeah, for sure. It was when it started becoming kind of really like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore.
You're like
Wait.
1 year in.
Yeah.
And then it took you 7 years to stop.
Yes, there were many contracts involved.
And you're on a moving train at that point, right?
Exactly,
Like
exactly.
It would feel like, this is crazy to not want to be the star of a huge TV show, right?
Yeah, and I think honestly there was a lot of like guilt and shame that came along with that, because I knew, well, first off, I started acting because my mom wanted to be an actress, so she was like, "Nah, I'll have you follow my dreams, kid." So I did that, and I knew from very early on that I wanted to go behind the scenes. But then when I was getting all this work as an actor, to say, oh, I don't love what I'm doing feels so much like a slap in the face to everybody who's working so hard at it, and it I think just brought on this such a complex layer of like guilt and shame that to get to the point where I even was able to admit that I didn't want to do it anymore, it was probably 20 at that point.
Wow. Yeah.
And you're also, you're on one show for so long. It's like, I'd imagine it's kind of like a family, and like and your colleagues have been, it's not like you're doing a different movie every week. It's like you're with the same people for years. Right.
And also in a sitcom environment. So I'm sure it's a totally different experience if you're doing films and you're, trying all these different characters, and it's more of that circus life of like meeting a new crew every 3 months or whatever. But when it's the same thing over and over and over, it's wild.
And were you guys in front of a live studio audience?
No, never.
Never.
Yeah, never.
But it's multicam, right?
Multicam, but just per our producer's request, there was never an audience. And I think that would have helped. I think that would have lent some energy and some newness every week. But also we were able to do our takes so many more times than we would have been able to if we'd had a live audience. So it had its benefits.
Right. And so I guess I'm curious, on a multicam show like that, where there is no audience and you're just kind of churning out a lot of episodes, how much of your performance and blocking and all that stuff is coming from the director versus the producer?
I'm going to say 100% was coming from our producer, because we'd work with our directors for 3 days, but for our rehearsal days, but then by the shoot day, everything would be sort of disregarded. And it got to the point where we were wondering, like, why are we even doing these rehearsal days? Everything's changing by the time we get to our shoot day. And
DGA requirements.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Wait, so what does the director do on a show like yours? Get a credit and a paycheck?
Yeah. I just kind of point, and I think our directors tried their best to kind of infuse some of their own takes and perspective on things, but also, given the content of what it was, what can there be?
But could they like pitch jokes like maybe you do a double take over here? What if you like trip on this step and look back? Like, is any of that stuff happening?
Yeah. What if you walk around the kitchen island in a really conspiratorial way, and then they would definitely try, but it was just all disregarded, truth be told.
Yeah. And is it, I mean
that's television, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, especially that type of television.
Yes.
Yeah. Like then I think like you talk about like the Breaking Bads or whatever, I don't know. Have you done Modern Family?
No. Mm-mm.
But I imagine the directors do a little more in that, just because there's like the zoom, like the camera is like a big character on a comedy like that.
Totally.
I want to back up just a tiny bit and talk. Can you give us the quick like cliff notes of your career? Because I think like Oren and I are both sort of the age where we don't totally know those shows.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Where it would be concerning if you did.
It'd be weird. Yeah.
I mean, I worked at Disney when iCarly was on, so I was very aware, but I was kind of in this very side
What did
division.
You do at Disney?
I directed, like, they had this department called DIMG, Digital Interactive Media Group, and we did, like, web series for tween girls, pretty much.
Oh, wow.
Like high school shows and stuff. But brands like iCarly or like Hannah Montana, they were like kind of the untouchable things. They were like, just don't even get close to this, because we were a little edgier and a little more like on the freeform ABC Family side of things.
Oh, okay, cool.
But very aware of like iCarly.
What? Yeah, sure.
And was Fred on iCarly?
Fred, Fred the YouTuber.
Yeah,
he was.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of was one of his. That was like one of the first like famous YouTubers that kind of made a transition to TV.
Yeah. Then he did a couple movies for them and everything. Basically, I started acting when I was 6. Mom wanted to be in acting. She put me in acting. I did a lot of the like crying guest star roles on procedural dramas.
I'm gonna miss my dad so much.
Exactly. Yeah. There's like definitely abuse involved, or some sort of kidnapping, or just like some very traumatic event.
Yeah, sure.
And did you know
Dr. House? Save us.
Exactly. Have you ever had to direct a kid to cry? Have either of you?
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah.
And what do you tell them like what's going on, or you just like kind of tell them you're gonna take their candy away?
The time I did it was not successful, and I was like, I just want you to hide your face. I was like hide your face, like bury yourself.
Yeah.
Is what I ended up. So it was like he was covering his eyes. He was like putting his eyes under his like arms, stuff like that.
Like
was
sniffles,
it
kind of?
Yeah.
Was it a dramatic cry or a comedic cry?
No, it was comedic cry. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I think because of my experiences as a child actor doing those crying scenes, I was just brutally honest with the girl about like what the context of the scene was and what I wanted from her, and she was 11 and insanely mature but not precocious, which I found very refreshing and kind of unexpected in the child acting world. But she was amazing, and I don't think she needed even one bit of direction. I think she totally understood what it was on her own.
Wait, I want to know, what would you say to a kid to make them cry, having done it so many times?
Well, I think it depends on the kid and being respectful of their mindset. But like with her, for example, I could just be totally honest about what it was, but maybe I'd withhold a little bit more if it were somebody who seemed a little more naive, and I'd say something vulnerable from my life. I would try to connect with them. I'd take them into a side room and open up. I feel like that is always connecting with the actors. I think the most important thing.
Like you tell them about the time your dog died or something.
Yeah.
And then how it made you feel, and you ask them like how something like that would make them feel, that type of thing. Maybe a little less therapy angles, but like something in that wheelhouse. I just feel like connecting to an actor is so important. I think the worst experience as an actor is when you feel like things are happening around you that you don't know. You're like, everybody's making all these decisions. I'm being physically touched constantly by every department head.
Sure.
And I don't know what's going on, that can be alarming, you know? So yeah, just opening up.
It's funny because I feel like there's some actors turned directors that are less good with actors.
Really?
Because
they've been through the ringer.
They've been through the ringer, and they're also like realizing all of a sudden how many things that they need to worry about today that they're not going to take time, like 15 minutes aside to like talk about, you know.
Feelings.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're an actor. You do your job. I'll do my job.
That's interesting. Almost like kind of less respect or something, maybe, as it's like, oh, now I see how many other things are important and priorities.
Maybe. Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know.
It's like they've been hazed already, so they're like...
Yeah.
Huh.
And they're the
maybe
pro.
more like commercial actors turned directors. Because, in commercials, it's like... I don't know if you've auditioned for commercials before, but a lot of times the actors do not get the script until they get to the audition, you know?
Really?
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
it's
a
really
different
weird.
World.
They just show up and then they see what they're supposed to do?
They're
Yeah. Well, usually it's like 2 lines. Yeah.
Wow, that's so bizarre.
Go for that. Sorry, Jennette, you were telling us your life story.
Yes, I was telling you about my sobbing child actor roles. So I played all these sad kids, and then I got this audition for a show called Zoe 101. It was a kids show. It was on Nickelodeon, and I had to kiss a boy. I didn't want to do it because I was raised Mormon and was not down to kiss a boy. And then my mom was like, you should just go on the audition. You're not going to have to kiss a boy unless you get the part. So I go in on that audition. I get it. And then the producer of that was a producer of iCarly, and he actually wrote the part on iCarly for me. So I got to go straight to network, which was hugely stress relief. And then I did that role, did that show for 6 seasons, and then got a spinoff from that show, did that for 1 very long extended season. And then I acted in a Netflix series for 2 seasons after that.
Wait, what was the Netflix series?
It's called Between. It was like a teen soap drama, zombie apocalypse type thing.
Wait, so did you have to audition for any of these? Or just basically Zoe 101 was your last audition?
Zoe 101 was, I didn't have to audition for any of those series, but I did audition for things in the interim between Zoe 101 and the show that lasted a long time, iCarly. I did a bunch of testing on shows and just a lot of tough breaks in between. But so then it was great that somebody who said, because I feel like you go through that all the time as an actor where people are like, I'm going to write this thing for you. You're a great kid or whatever. But then he actually did follow through, which I thought was very nice. So then I did this Netflix show, and then I got the call that the Netflix show was canceled. And I had been thinking for a long time of how much I wanted to write and direct, but the opportunity never was really there. I genuinely just didn't have the time to kind of pursue it. And I thought, well, I kind of rethought my whole life, kind of reevaluated it and thought, well, I didn't even really want to act to begin with. That was kind of what my mom wanted me to do. So what do I want to do? And it was hugely terrifying to admit that I didn't really want to act anymore, that I wanted to try to pursue this entirely new career that, even though it's kind of adjacent and in the same world, was going to take so much work and have so many mistakes along the way, and that it'd be just so daunting. But after like a couple months of hard processing, I decided that I wanted to pursue it, and that's what I've been pursuing for the past couple years.
Have you ever thought about like pulling a Jodie Foster and like only working with directors you really want to learn from, or like doing a TV show that maybe they'll give you a couple episodes of, or anything like that?
Absolutely. If there's something that really creatively spoke to me on the acting front, I would jump at the chance to like work with an exciting director, or even other exciting actors, or something that I felt like I could really, really, and of course you can always learn and grow from anything, but just like, sure, a big experience like that would be amazing. But what I found with, just because of my track record and the jobs that I'd done, was it would just be, I'd get tons of scripts for sitcoms, and I'd already done that for so long, and I hate how spoiled it sounds, but it's just the truth. I just felt like I can't do another I'm falling and I'm spilling the plates and they're everywhere. Like I just couldn't do that anymore.
You are still pretty good at that.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But yeah, loud and clear. It's kind of like saying I don't want to go back to high school again.
Right? Thank you. Exactly. That's totally exactly what it was.
People have stress dreams about that.
Yes.
I do, actually.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, great. So then tell us about, you've had this epiphany. What's the first step you take towards making the goal of becoming a full-time director a reality? What did you do first?
Well, I had been, during the Netflix show that I was working on our hiatuses, I had been taking spec writing classes and sketch writing classes, and it was definitely something I was pursuing on the side.
Where were you taking those classes?
I took spec writing at IO West and sketch writing at UCB.
And spec writing is like writing spec episodes?
Yeah, so I did a spec, like a Brooklyn Nine-Nine spec, and a Vice Principals, was that the show?
Sure, yeah.
I didn't, so people are still doing that, I guess.
Well, this was like 5 years ago, so I don't know if that's still, I don't think that's happening anymore. I think that's
IO West is...
Yeah.
Is it done? Is it gone?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know.
Yeah, it's such a bummer.
I'm so out of touch. Okay. When did that happen?
Kind of
2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't believe I didn't hear. Crazy.
Yeah.
I'm curious because you, again, were like read hundreds of sitcom scripts.
Yeah.
If that affected your writing in any way. Like, were you writing like setups and punchlines and stuff in your drama scripts? Well, I guess you're writing comedy, so.
Yeah, I was writing comedy. So, like, I did this spec writing class, and I was writing comedy that I wasn't super passionate about those types of like, I loved them, and I thought they were hilarious, but I felt like something didn't quite align with what I wanted to be writing tonally, and I hadn't fully been exposed to similar tones to what I wanted to write. And then I started seeing shows like Enlightened, or like, Breaking Bad or something where it's just so textured and interesting. Enlightened specifically, where it's like this comedy drama weird tone, and I just like lit up and felt like I just was so passionate and excited about exploring kind of that world, and that spoke to me the most. So then that's the kind of the stuff that I started writing. And I think actually, as for like the influence of those sitcom scripts on me, I think I felt more turned off by that. Like it wasn't like I just fell into, I didn't want to write that way. I found it very kind of off-putting.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, because I guess those schools do have like a sort of perspective of like, hey, you want to be a comedy person, right?
Right.
And so I guess that you kind of just end up falling into that bucket a little bit because you're just at IO or you're at UCB, and like that's that.
Exactly.
Right?
And the notes that you're given are based on their approaches and their school of thought, which makes so much sense, but it definitely wasn't kind of what I wanted to be working on.
Right.
Have you guys taken classes at those places?
I took Improv 101 and Sketch 1 and 2 at UCB.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And my wife was in like not a house team, but like did the UCB thing pretty seriously there.
Cool.
Like years and years ago now.
What was your experience?
I had a good time, but
Yeah.
I also like, especially at the time, was very comedy focused. Like I worked at Comedy Central,
Yeah.
and like
You wore a clown nose.
I wore a clown nose all the time.
Very weird.
Yeah. I was volunteering at a hospital. It's just like, yeah. So I had a really nice time. I'm not like naturally a performer necessarily. So
Is that why you took the 101 class?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just kind of was like more curious, and I think there's a lot of theory to UCB in particular that I really liked. Like I sometimes over intellectualize things, so like that felt really good to me in a way that like I think Groundlings is more character based and like a little more actor oriented, I would say. So like game and that theory, that idea of like how you heighten and all that stuff really appealed to me.
It's more like writer-based comedy. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, my friend Dave, who listens to this podcast, he took like a late night show joke or monologue writing class.
I remember seeing that on the.
Like, did you know that's a thing?
Yeah. At IO West or at
I don't remember where he took it.
I think so.
I think
right?
it's there. Yeah.
But it was like, I was like, oh, there's like a way to construct those jokes, and it's
Right.
I'm like Matt. I like love figuring out like the formula for writing, so that I don't have to be creative.
But you haven't taken any classes there.
No, I took some writing classes at Santa Monica College when I moved to LA a very long time ago. But no, I've always like wanted to. My wife went through Groundlings, and she has a show at UCB, like a monthly show. So
cool.
I'm exposed to it a lot.
Yeah.
And I am like super impressed by like the sketch writing, especially out of UCB. And
Sure.
I directed some like sketches with UCB people. But
Oh.
yeah, I would, like if I had a podcast and people asked me for my advice on like what to do as a director, I would tell them they should definitely take writing classes at those places. But I personally have not really ever done it.
Well, it's also nice to have a place to hang out, right?
Yeah, totally.
So let me ask actually, because I have a friend who worked in kids TV for a long time, and he'd always tell me like, I have to schedule like the prom for everybody, right? And like kind of all of like he had a lot of things where he was building in social experiences for the young actors because they didn't get to go to high school or whatever. How after you kind of emerged from that whole machine, how did you find community, or like how did you kind of like, it's almost like you moved to LA for the first time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I definitely had some friends, some crew member friends who kind of stayed my friends. They're, quite a bit of an age gap, but what if
Sure,
a friend
yeah.
is a friend type
Yeah,
thing.
sure.
And I didn't feel, a lot of people I feel like have I missed my prom, or I missed having that first high school boyfriend or something, but I really didn't feel that at all. I felt a little bit of like longing for a childhood once I got to maybe 20, but it was my younger years. There was never like a romanticized high school time.
Yeah,
it was just like, I grew up really fast. I was around adults when I was 7. That's kind of strange.
Right.
But yeah, that definitely for the teenage years, take or leave those.
Sure, fair enough. So tell me what you did then after those first classes. Let's go to like tell us about the first time you got behind a camera and started really like directing something you were excited for.
Yeah, so I wrote this thing called The McCurdys. It had started out as a feature, and then I stopped the feature midway through and rewrote it as a pilot. And it's just sort of a dramedy based on my experiences as a kid actor, being raised in a dysfunctional Mormon family with a mom who was dying of cancer. Very much autobiographical in so many ways. And I felt like I needed to write something that was that specific and that honest to me and that vulnerable in order to be able to direct it. I felt like that would be the only way that I could connect to directing right off the bat without feeling like I had to fill some new like director role or, in some sort of inauthentic way or something. So I wrote this thing and I sent it to my managers at the time. And
these are your acting managers?
These were my acting managers, yeah. And they were very supportive of my writing and everything and had really been great about encouraging that and endorsing that. And they wanted me to go around and pitch it, and I felt like I couldn't. I felt like I just had to make it on my own. It had to be from me, from my bones. I had to like bleed and sweat for this thing. So I told them like, I'm just going to make it. I'm going to make it in 4 weeks. So during those 4 weeks, it was all pre-production and taking meetings with department heads and assembling the crew. And then I shot it 4 weeks later. And
it's a single camera dramedy.
Yeah, single camera dramedy, and had an amazing experience shooting it. Untouchable. I couldn't believe the way that things came together.
And are you hiring like DPs that have shot like a million TV shows, or someone that's just out of film school, or like friends of yours, or like Zane Rubin crew?
This was it. Yeah, Zane was super helpful. Zane and I were friends already at the time, and she was so tremendously helpful through that entire process and in casting sessions with me and helping me make casting choices, and it was just amazing. But the DP was somebody who he had done a lot of commercial work and a lot of branded work and some narrative work, but he was super experienced. I definitely felt like everybody needed to be more experienced than me, otherwise it wouldn't. I didn't want to be captaining the thing without,
which is a funny thing to say for a person who's been on 100+ episodes of television.
True,
Right.
for sure.
Well, I'm always curious because like my wife, she's like in a lot of commercials, and I'm like, hey, what camera did they shoot on? She's like, I have no idea. I'm like, weren't you standing right next to looking at the camera all day? She's like, yeah, I don't know. There was like this thing on top, and
she
like,
acts.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So now she knows. She's like, oh, they had like a fly swatter on set. Like you would like this, or she'll just send me like little pictures of equipment. She's like, they're hanging someone from a harness here, because I think now because I ask her, I grill her on it. She like really pays attention to how the sausage is made.
Did she? And she did. So she just didn't have an interest in that prior to meeting you, or was it
in like what cameras are being used and stuff? Yeah, I still think she doesn't care, but she knows I'm going to ask her.
It's just handy to have an answer now. Yeah.
And are you? I'm assuming you guys are both super tech savvy. You know all the.
Oren is more than me, I would say, but I like cameras.
We're about the same. It's not like I want to. Like I care about the specs or like what resolution or everything. I'm just curious, like, if David Fincher is shooting a car driving down Hollywood Boulevard like at 100 miles per hour, like what are the things that are required to get that done? Because if I want to do that, can I do it for $10,000 or do I need like $1 million? To me it's like, and even when I've shadowed like on set before, I'll talk to like the gaffer, I'll be like, what light is that? Like, how much does that cost? Like, how much electricity does that? Do I need house power? Do I need a generator? Like,
yeah.
Because I'm always thinking how, knowing if I'm working on a $10,000 budget or $1 million budget, like, what can I get done?
Yeah, totally.
There's like a producer mindset to it a little bit.
For sure, yeah.
So like that stuff, certainly I think we're both kind of...
Yeah, even as a boom, when I used to boom op on like student films, I'd just be so fascinated by the gear, you know, and how, and not just the gear, also what's the director saying to the actors, and it's just like such a learning experience, which is what we tell all our listeners is like be on set, and you were on set so much, but you were probably... It was just like kind of on the edges. Yeah,
I mean, when I was young, I do remember, like, I definitely asked a lot of questions. I remember the first time I was able to like sit in a seat behind a camera. I was 11 or maybe 12, and it was Law and Order SVU, and the DP. I was asking him a lot of questions, so he was like, "Well, come sit and let me show you on one." And he took his whole lunch break to sit there and teach me about it. And like, it warms my heart. So I definitely had great loving crews around me that were very helpful in that way. But I think just because of so many years on a sitcom, that kind of faded to the back burner, and it's just these big 4 cameras plopped in front of you, and
you're just kind of like worried about other stuff. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So what happened to the McCurdys? What was the next step?
I did not release it. I've the most that I've done with it is released a 1-minute clip to my Instagram. I haven't figured out what to do with the project or where it lies. It's so personal. Obviously, by the time I went through, so the 4 days of shooting it were amazing. And then by the time it goes through editing and you realize that whole process and what it's like to see what you actually have versus what you thought you had, and all those emotional ups and downs, it definitely took a lot out of me. It was hugely draining and emotional. And
were you screening it for people and getting notes?
I didn't screen. I sent it to a few people and got some notes from them, but nothing. No, I didn't do it in any sort of a big way. But then it took a minute to get back on the horse emotionally. And once I did that, then I started developing the next couple shorts that I made over that summer.
Do you think that you'll ultimately release it, or do you think that's just kind of something you want to keep private?
I'm not sure, because I think there's a lot of great stuff in it, and I would like to do something with it at some point, but I don't know what that is yet. And I'm, at this point I shot it, I guess over 2.5 years ago I shot it, and I don't, obviously I'm not rushing it, but I don't know, I don't want to just put something out to put it out, and I don't know where it lives either. I don't think, it's too long, and it's a pilot, so it doesn't make sense to do something like try to go a short of the week route or do a festival route. So it's a confusing project.
Well, there are nowadays, I think, a lot of festivals, even Sundance and stuff, that take pilots.
I've heard. I've kind of wondered about that.
Do you like it?
I do. I should say I like aspects of it. I think there are aspects of it that are great. I think it's really well acted. I think there's one, the A story, I think is really strong, and I think I threw in too many side stories, and those became a little muddled. But I've been thinking of trying to get somebody to re-edit it and work backward from what we have to what I think is the strongest kind of angle to take for it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also interesting to just think through, it's so ambitious and so big and so personal, but also, so many people have a handful of short films under their belt before they actually release something.
Sure, totally.
Would you just? It's almost like film school in a really healthy way.
That's exactly how I viewed it. I thought it I didn't go to film school. That would have been the route I would have wanted to take if I'd gone to college. So I can just kind of chalk this up to a learning experience, and I'm definitely not opposed to that. And I had a couple other shorts that I view the same exact way, where it's I had to do that in order to know that I don't like that at all. But I just have such a special place in my heart for it, versus a couple other shorts that I made where I was just well, that is trash and no one will ever see this.
Well, do you think, Jennette is in this unique position where if we made crappy shorts and put them out, no one would really care.
Yeah.
But people, do you feel like you're a little more careful about what you show to the world, because
there's definitely an element of that.
People are quick to judge.
For sure.
Or they want to judge.
Absolutely. I think they're definitely, you got to be I think I have to be a little more cautious than I would be. And I think that's good. I think especially nowadays with how easy it is to put stuff out there. And it seems like there's just this constant kind of chase or just output is rewarded, but I think it's kind of like restraint. It should be more valued right now than anything.
Yeah, it's funny because I think, have you ever heard of One a Day? It's like people, they'll say like, I want to learn Photoshop or photography or
songwriting or whatever.
Modeling or whatever. And so I'm just going to do 1 hour a day. I'm just going to do whatever I can do. And then I'm just going to put it online, like on an Instagram channel. And so people get so much better at whatever they're doing.
Sure. It's crazy.
Part of the reason I think they get better is because they're showing people their stuff. Like I think in film, for me personally, like showing people stuff, I've made so much stuff that I hated, and then I show people and they're like, oh, that's pretty good. Or I get like some of my most viewed things and like my best regarded work is the stuff that I hated, and some of the stuff that I really loved and put my heart and soul into, people are like, yeah.
Yeah, the TV stuff, I go back and forth, right? Because I think you were making the point before of like, you saw Breaking Bad and all of those other awesome shows, Enlightened and stuff, and it's like, oh, that's what got you really excited, you know? And I think that style of storytelling is what excites me as well. And that used to be indie film, right? And now that's TV. But there's still a little part of me that's like, go to a movie, go to like a little indie, even though like TV is where all the work is and where that work is being seen.
So was the movie kind of idea tugging at you, or the idea of like wanting to make a movie?
Yeah.
Was this yesterday, or was this
ongoing in general, actually? Because like
it wasn't like a revelation of like,
okay, you can be a little more self-guided in that way. I can be like, oh, I'm going to go out and fundraise. I'll put together the stuff.
Sure.
I'll get the thing. We'll go make the movie.
And you can also take risks that you could never take in TV, I think, unless you were very well established, right? Like you could make a movie that's all in reverse or silent or whatever, black and white. Like, you know, there aren't a million people making every decision. Have you pitched TV before?
No. Actually, I did, yes. A few years back, pitched a digital series and sold it, which is exciting. And then I wasn't passionate about it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, this was kind of right as I was deciding that I wanted to write and direct my own stuff, and there was this opportunity to work with some people, but it wasn't my own idea. I didn't have a huge personal connection to it. I thought the concept was interesting, and I'd be curious to watch something like it. But then throughout that pitch process, it was the same time when I was writing McCurdy's, and
right. So you've got your passion project,
exactly.
and you keep looking at that. And you're like,
exactly. Yeah. And it's just kind of, I think when you're working on that passion project, then it's just like you feel yourself kind of getting further and further away from that other path, and that's kind of what happened.
And so would you direct something that someone else wrote?
I'd have to be so connected to it. I think it'd be pretty tough to have the amount of vision required if that vision wasn't yours. What do you guys feel toward that?
I mean, we direct for hire all the time.
Yeah. And you love it?
Most of the time.
Okay. Yeah. Totally.
I think we both are pretty good at like falling in love with something, or convincing yourself you love it.
Yeah.
And like, I think the heartbreak for me at least is on the other side when it like doesn't turn out because some people decided to do things the way that I didn't want to do, or I made the wrong decision. You know, like at the beginning it's all potential, so it's so easy to fall in love with that idea, and then, you know, sometimes you don't love the result.
So what do both of you have like some sort of passion project that's the thing that you're just like, oh my God, if I could make this?
Well, it's that show I just pitched.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have a bunch of things I'm passionate about, but I guess like Matt, like my favorite part of filmmaking, I used to be an engineer. That's probably maybe why I'm like kind of technical, but what I didn't like about engineering is like I just like worked with the same 5 people, and I spent most of my time like interacting with a computer. And what I like about filmmaking is I spend most of my time also interacting with a computer, unfortunately. but the fun parts are like when I'm interacting with people and meeting new people, and I love it when someone walks in and it's like, hey, I had this idea.
Yeah.
It's a guy that doesn't sleep and he leads 2 lives, you know, one during the day. Like, well, what can we do with that? And then just like riffing on it. Like I like riffing and brainstorming, and then like, oh, and this is kind of like a metaphor for what's going on in the world. Or it's less about like telling my story and more about like finding a way that I can connect with something that, because again, to me, like film as a medium, it's so expensive to make things, and it takes so long that it's like I don't want to make things for me. I want to make things for an audience. I want to find something that I connect with that hopefully other people connect with as well. So in other words, I have a lot of things I'm super passionate about, but almost every project of mine, I have one that's like about my brothers and me. That's kind of like this superhero story. But aside from that, everything, I have like a partner, I have a friend, or I'm teaming up with people, to get each other excited about projects.
Yeah. But the brother thing, you're writing alone.
Yeah. I mean, I've started writing it like 10 years ago, Sure. But anytime someone's like, hey, want to have lunch? I'll be like, yep.
I got nothing on the calendar for sure.
Yeah. And that's what's nice about, paying jobs is like a real excuse to hit deadlines and do all that stuff.
Sure.
What about you? What's next? What's what's next in the short term?
I'm actually writing a play.
Oh.
Yeah. So totally, I'm super passionate about reading plays, and I love that all the information has to come out in dialogue. I think that's a nice challenge, and that the characters have to be so clear. My most favorite part about any TV show or film is the characters. Like 100% of the time, if the characters are great and really well fleshed out and have really interesting arcs, then that's the thing that I find I get most interested to watch, even if the story's relatively small or what have you. So I started reading a lot of plays, and then I thought, I think I wanted to try writing one. And I've been writing one for, I guess, a month and a half. And I just finished a second-ish draft, and it has a long way to go.
Are you allowed to tell us what it's about, or would you prefer not
It deals with addiction. The overall kind of question posed is like, why do we take some addictions more seriously than others?
Right, like coffee, right? No one is worried about this, but I can't stop.
It's this middle-aged woman who has a shopping addiction, and I think shopping is oftentimes like really glamorized, and you know, we see this like hot kind of 20-something with like bags over her shoulders, and she's just whatever. But I think it's a lot deeper than that, and it can affect families in a really sad way, and I think it's a lot sadder than we see. And so I wanted to show if something's sadder or funnier than I feel like it's generally seen, that I'm like, I love that.
Drawn to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Does your character, I'm curious about the mechanics, is it like a home shopping thing, or like what's your home set? So she's a shopaholic / there's a difference between shopaholics and hoarders. I did a lot of research on this, and also my mom was a hoarder growing up, so I kind of knew a bit more about hoarders. Yeah. There's a different level of attachment. Like if a hoarder tries to throw something away, it's like soul crushing. Shopaholics don't have that same emotional attachment necessarily, but she hasn't gotten rid of any of her stuff. So she has a very much hoarder-esque looking house for the first act of the play, and she's definitely like just an online, not like a home shopping network, but just online Amazon constantly coming to her house type shopper. Very compulsive.
Have you seen Queen of Versailles?
No.
Oh, you must watch it.
I will.
It's a Netflix documentary.
I will.
There's a scene where this mom takes her kids shopping to Walmart with like their 7 maids or like nannies, and she buys a new bike for every kid, and then they bring them all back home and they put them in the basement, and they're all next to like 30 other bikes that they've never ridden before.
Yeah, totally. Wow.
But it's a documentary, so
cool. I'll check it out.
Yeah, that's cool. So what about you? Like where do you see your career going? It sounds to me just from this interview that you're a little more focused on like kind of telling your story, and it sounds like less focused about like directing that cool car chase scene, or you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like for everything that I write so far, I have to have some sort of personal investment. Like, you know, even for this, it became this shopaholic woman, but initially it was a hoarder because of my experience with my mom. And that, I think that level of attachment is necessary for me to stay invested past the point of passion, because the passion's inevitably going to fade at some point, and then the pile of work's going to sit in front of you, and it's going to be daunting, and you're going to have a breakdown, and then you're going to face it again. And I think in order to kind of get over that hump of the breakdown, there has to be something that's just like, well, something in me is just pulling me to tell this story. I have to tell it. So I assume there will always be some sort of personal attachment.
Which makes so much sense though, right? Because that's it reflects the experience you had on the show.
Totally.
Right? Like you were into it for a little bit, and then you didn't like it anymore, but you still had that pile of work in front of you.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
So interesting.
Yeah.
I had one last question.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the interview, you talked about just like your experience working with other directors as an actor. Can you give us like a few words of advice if our listeners are new directors about like kind of some do's and don'ts with actors or some things that they might not realize?
How fun. So definitely my favorite aspect of directing, and I believe the most important part, is connecting with actors. I'm like hugely, if the performance isn't there, I don't care what the shot looks like. It doesn't matter if the performance is not in place. So taking the time to know a little bit about your actors and their mindsets, how they are approaching their process for this, and letting them have some input. Yeah, letting it be a conversation, but being very careful with that, because it has to be your vision. I feel like if you have a vision and you give actors too much freedom, then it just can go haywire and they can just get lost in. You want your vision to be executed. So making sure that all the actors are on the same page for what you want, but that you're communicating with each of them specifically to what communication style works best for them.
And then what about any don'ts, like, line readings, things like that, like assuming...
Yeah, I don't do line readings, although I think I did one on the last thing I made, and I thought about that for days. But I typically try not to.
But when you were an actor, did that bother you?
If I didn't like the line reading. It depended on whether I liked it or not. There were some directors where, this is a hugest don't. Don't be fucking abstract and try and show off what a great director you are by giving some vague direction. As an actor, the worst thing to me would be when a director would come over and like give me, this long-winded story, like this flowery kind of thing. I'd be like, sad, mad, upset, like, what do you want? Just give me just the most basic adjective you can possibly give me, and I'll do that. And I know some actors would hate that, but that was I was very much like, just give it to me straight. I don't want this to be this long thing.
Right. Do you know who Judith Weston is? She wrote this book called, her first book? Directing Actors.
Oh, I feel like The Artist's Way mentions that book or something.
Oh,
yeah.
Could be. She's like the most kind of classic, like from my point of view at least, person that writes about how directors that aren't actors should direct actors. I don't know if she came up with this, but I think she spread the idea of like action-oriented as opposed to result-oriented direction. And I think a lot of directors like have taken her classes or read her books or know about this idea that like instead of saying like you should be mad, it'd say like
attack
take your
her.
anger out. Basically verbs instead of adjectives.
So you have an objective, right?
Yeah. Giving people motivation, right? Like that.
For sure.
Thing.
For sure.
And so, but it's funny because a lot of TV actors I think are really good at like just mad, happy, faster, louder. Like,
well, there's a thing where you become director proof, right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I see what your flowery story. I get what you're trying to say.
Totally.
I know how to process that and do what you're asking.
Yes. Yeah. And I wish that gap wasn't there. I wish that it could just be, as
cut to the chase.
Yeah. Totally. But I get that. I mean, some actors absolutely hate that. And again, I think it's so important that it's like knowing your actors and knowing what they respond to. There was one actress that I worked with who was fantastic, but my style was just, it took a day and we wound up reshoot. I was like, I don't think I have the scenes. So we wound up squeezing that scene into a separate day just because I think I wasn't communicating with her the way that she understood and processed. And I think it was causing some tension. And I learned that lesson. Sure. And I'm sure I'll learn it many more times.
Yeah. I worked with this actor that was kind of famous. And the agency people, it's for a commercial, kept saying, like, have him smile bigger. Like, we want a bigger smile. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell him to give me a bigger smile. So I'll be like, hey, let's do it like you're super pumped. You're excited. Like, let's just go bigger and broader on it. Yeah. And he's like, okay. And they're like, no, more teeth. We need more teeth. And like, I just tried like 10 different things. And I was like, can you just give me a way bigger smile? And he's like, I'm smiling. This is how I smile. I was like, just go over the top. And he did. They're like, perfect. But like him and I both hated it. But, I don't know. Sometimes
interesting.
It's like you just got to tell him exactly what you're trying to get as opposed to how to get it.
I'm curious if you guys feel this ever. Sometimes I notice this more with women than with men, but getting into like the nuance of the dynamic of a scene, I can really sometimes the best way to communicate that with women is to go really into it, whereas with men it's just to be a little more like direct about it. Meaning like if there's a scene, say there's like a difficult mother in a scene, and being like, well, you're upset because yesterday he didn't do your laundry, which you would ask him to do twice. So then this first line you're saying at him because you want him to know that he should be doing the laundry, but when he doesn't realize it on his second line, then you need to really drive it home for your next line. But then you're upset because he didn't pick up on your first thing, so then you're upset at the first, like. And they'll be like, got it, cool. But if I were to do that with a guy, they'd be like, what? Like,
I wonder. I don't know. I think your initial advice of just like understanding like their worldview or their approach, I guess, is really the better way to say it.
Yeah.
I think is right. You know what I mean? Because I can think of plenty of actors. Maybe men are a little bit more direct sometimes, but I think it maybe is like where you trained. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like what school you're out of.
Totally.
Right?
I also, when I started, I would use a lot of words. I'd do that. I'd be like on the first line. And then, on page 7, when you say that thing, what if you try like this? And I realized like, I'd see the actors be like, okay. And then I realized like, even a direction like that, I'd probably be like, you've told them this a million times.
Yeah.
Like just have that in the back of your mind before you start.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just try to get it like, as small and
as
then
clean as possible.
Yeah,
totally.
And then hopefully we can hit little beats or something.
Yeah,
later.
Totally.
I think maybe it's also like building the performance a little bit, right?
Totally.
Like I think the way you directed it, where it was like, oh, okay, like you're breaking down the different colors of each line.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to jump in on that, But like after it's like, okay, you told them a bunch of times, then you can be like, I want to see a little.
You got
something
your wides. You got for sure.
Yeah.
It's weird because as a director, I've had like tone meetings with writers or producers and stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like, and then on this line, we're thinking this. And then here, this. And I'm like thinking in my head, there's no way I'm going to tell the actor all these things,
Yeah, overwhelming.
Yeah. So
yeah, totally.
I have to sometimes interpret from them, like, what's the overall idea here for the scene and where does it turn?
I mean, the more I do it, the less I talk.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Let's do it again faster.
Yeah.
I have one other thought on directing actors. I feel like don't undermine the actors. I think it goes back to my experience from being a kid and feeling like, again, you're physically touched by every department. Everybody's in your business, and yet you can feel, it's really easy to feel disregarded. It's really easy to feel like just, you have to land on your mark and start spewing your lines, and it's just like robotic. And I think, actors are very intuitive, sensitive people, and they're picking up on everything, even that you don't think they're picking up on. When you whisper a note to the DP, they see you doing it. So just like making them as much a part of the process as possible, I think is nice.
It's so funny because I feel like so often I'll say something like, okay, we'll do one for you. Like, I see the way you want to do it, and then we'll do one for me. And I feel like oftentimes actors are like, nah, I know what you're doing.
Yeah. I know this trick. Yeah, totally.
But I always mean it. It's
Totally.
the thing. Like, I'm happy to be wrong. Like, if that's the right way to do it, awesome. Like, no one knows what take we decided on until you see the final piece.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
have you guys ever had an actor say like, no, I'm not going to do it that way?
yes.
Yeah.
Often.
Most times.
No, but I'll never forget it.
Why do my
I'll
pants
never
need to be
forget
on?
it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll tell you off mic.
Cool. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, but I feel like I have a pretty good barometer of if an actor doesn't like the take. And a lot of times I'll be like, well, I thought that was great. Everyone was cracking up or whatever, but I feel like, did you not like that? And they're like, well, I don't know. It just felt like I wasn't in it, or that seemed a little off. Or I'll be like, well, do you want to try something else? Because we're always just behind schedule 100% of the time. So I'm always just like pushing to move forward. But if I sense, to me, if the actor is feeling uncomfortable, then that's like the most important thing we need to fix before we move on.
Yeah, I feel like early on I'll tell an actor this, but I also stand by it. Like, doing another take is the easiest part, right? Like, we're already set up. Like, that's like doing fewer takes doesn't really help your day that much. Like, cutting setups does, right? And so I never want to like spend a bunch of time debating whether or not we got it. If we didn't get it, picture's up. Let's roll it again. Let's just do it. So like, if an actor's like, I need one more, I'm like, okay, back to one.
That's so nice.
And that's like, because one more take is going to cost you 30 seconds.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, Yeah. Well, Jennette, this was great.
Yeah,
this is so fun.
thanks.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
Of course.
Thank you for coming here.
Can you stick around and endorse with us?
Oh, yes.
Unpaid endorsements.
So my endorsement is I just took a big trip. Oren and I both just took big trips, and we brought a guidebook with us. We specifically Rick Steves, Italy, which was great.
Which is like for old people, right?
Old people do love it. Yeah, for sure. Like he had a PBS show.
Because there is a guidebook for people that like just graduated college and they're going to Europe for the summer, right?
Yes.
Like Let's Go Europe. Right?
Yeah, I'm sure there's like stuff that's like a little bit more themed. The thing that I love about having a guidebook is you're not using your data, right? So like if you're on an international plan or like you're roaming or whatever, it doesn't.
Wait, is this a physical book?
I'm recommending having a physical book when you take a trip. That is what my actual endorsement is, because it's never going to run out of batteries. And also, so often we would be like, I don't know where to park, or like, how do street signs work, or things that are a little harder to Google.
Yeah.
And that can incite like anxiety in people,
especially in other countries.
Yeah,
like in Florence, there's like certain streets where only certain people are allowed to drive.
Yeah.
And if you get caught on that street driving your rental car,
you get a
give
big
you a ticket.
fine. Yeah, you get a couple €100 fine, and the sign is a circle with a red line.
Right.
So you don't know, like, does that mean I'm allowed to drive there or not? Like, you just are kind of following people's leads. But if you have the guidebook, like, you're not like spending time on your phone being like Googling like circle red meaning Florence, right?
Yeah.
When we were in Italy, I kept seeing these signs. There were city names with a red line through them. And I was like, what does this mean? Is this how they write city names? It looks like a city is going to be destroyed here or something.
Yeah.
And then I realized probably 6 days in that it means you're leaving the city.
So most good guidebooks will have like a traffic sign section, for instance, or like I said, recommendations on where to park, just like little hints and tips of like, this is a good place to get like exchange currency. And all of that stuff is available online for sure. But to have something reliable that like you kind of leafed through on the train a little bit here and there just made our trip so much better than if I just had my phone.
And you downloaded like audio guides too,
We
right?
did download audio guides. That's specific to Rick Steves. But those were like little, like he was a tour guide for like every church that we went to. He'd explain like, when this thing was made or like why it's important or interesting.
And you just listen on your phone?
So my wife has the AirPods. And so we would each put one in, and so we could hear each other or hear the guide in real time. And the range on those is really great. So
Wow.
Yeah.
So having an actual physical guidebook is my endorsement.
Right.
Great.
My endorsement is don't have a guidebook. Weighs so much. But I will double down on the AirPods. I just got them literally the day we flew to out of town. They're really expensive.
Yeah.
I think they're like $175 or something
Jeez.
for headphones. Does that sound right?
I think they're a little less.
150?
Yeah, something like that.
It's like just a ridiculous amount of money.
For a thing that I feel like I will lose.
That comes for free with your phone. It just doesn't have a wire.
Yeah.
But they're really awesome. And everyone I know that has them is like, I can't even like hold my phone up to my face anymore because they're so convenient. And I like listen to podcasts. So the biggest thing is as freelancers, a lot of us are, people that just have weird schedules. A lot of times we're like walking and having lunch somewhere by ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And, you're trying to listen to a podcast or talk to someone, but you're trying to eat. And then like your food keeps getting on that wire that's attached to your earbuds. With the AirPods, you can eat while you're listening to something because there's no wire.
You never have a moment alone with your thoughts ever again.
So I love the AirPods. Yeah, I never have to work out my plot holes. I just listen to 3 guys that used to work for Obama talk about politics. But the other thing I was going to endorse is, again, something that I think 98% of our listeners know about, but this is for you 2%ers that don't know about it. So on the iPhone, no matter what you install or how you use it, like it's logging all your steps for the day. There's the health app, right? And I kind of knew about it when we first got it, but I just forgot about it until we were in Italy again. And we were like comparing, we're like, I did like 32,000 steps today or something.
Yeah.
And because I work from home a lot, like now I've kind of just made it my new thing of just making sure I get 10,000 steps every day. And it's just so easy to check because I have this iPhone thing. So if you have an iPhone and you don't know about it, just look at your health app, and it has been logging your steps without you even knowing it for the past many years, 10 years.
A little weird.
I will endorse. I just watched Jackie Brown for the first time.
Ooh.
Oh, fun.
And I
You're
love
the
it.
second person that told me that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they told me that that's his last good movie.
It's
This
my
person
favorite
that I
Quentin Tarantino film.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm an Inglourious Bastards fan.
Okay. I
Yeah.
haven't seen
Yeah.
Inglourious
I mean,
Basterds.
Oh, it's great.
Fiction
I've only
isn't
seen the
bad
opening.
either.
Yeah.
Oh, I will
Reservoir
check it out.
Dogs is not bad.
I really liked Reservoir Dogs, but I loved Jackie Brown. Robert Forster was so charming. Wow. And then this play, The Waverly Gallery by Kenneth Lonergan, and it's about have you read it?
No, but he wrote Manchester by the Sea.
Yeah.
Did they put it up recently?
I don't think recently. There was another one of his plays. This Is Our Youth, I think, was running.
Yeah,
kind
which
of
I saw
recently.
actually.
Oh, how was that?
Awesome.
Did you see it was it Michael Cera and
I saw it with Michael Cera and Tavi Gevinson and the best Culkin.
Rory Culkin? I don't know.
Macaulay.
Kieran. Macaulay Culkin.
That'd be great. And it was really good. Yeah.
Oh,
super
wow.
good. Yeah.
That would be so fun to see.
Yeah, but I think they've done a couple. I think with a few of those cast members actually.
Wow.
I think like Michael Cera and Kenneth Lonergan worked together.
And Lucas Hedges?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
dear
yeah.
God. To see him.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
He is in one of the movies that we're judging. Oh, no. He's not in one of the
Really?
movies. He's in Mid-90s. Have you guys seen that movie?
No.
It's Jonah Hill's movie.
How was it?
I saw it on the airplane. I really liked it. I had like zero expectations. It's shot in 4:3.
Was there a lot of like 90? Was there like Third Eye Blind music, or like what was the music? I was curious how that would work.
You know, it's not really about the music. It doesn't. One of the things I like about it is it's not like a gratuitous 90s reference.
Right. It's not. Yeah.
It's about a specific slice. It feels kind of Orange County-ish.
Yeah.
It's about just this kid. His older brother is Lucas Hedges, who's like this jerk. He has a single mom.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have like a lot of friends, and he goes to the skate shop and basically becomes friends with all these older kids. And they teach him how to be like a bad kid, drink and smoke and all that stuff and party. But it's just like really downplayed, and all the performances. Lucas Hedges is like the only person I recognize in the movie. But it's really great. There's really good skating in it. And anyway. Snuck another endorsement in there.
Well, Jennette, this has been such a treat. Where can our listeners learn more about you? Do you tweet? Do you Instagram? What's the deal?
I don't really tweet, and I Instagram very rarely. But my website is JennetteMcCurdy.com, and I usually keep that pretty updated.
Do you put like your films on there? And
I put
like
links
that?
to the films that I have released, and then just any new fun stuff that I'm working on. And I also have a section of just stuff that I've been reading, listening to, watching.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, you know what I do if like I make a short, which I haven't for a while, or something that I'm like, this is 80% good, but there's some things I don't like about it. Just put stills.
Great.
Take my favorite
There you
stills
go.
and put them online.
Love that.
Online.
Yeah. Put like a release coming soon. Awesome. Well, you can learn more about the show and all the things that we talked about at justshootitpod.com, and we're across all social media at justshootitpod. I'm at Mr. Matt Enlow.
And I'm at O'Kaplan on Instagram. And this episode was edited by Sarah Weirda. Our producer is Madeline Rosewatt, and our webmaster is Ewan Williams. And the music you're listening to is from the Free Music Archive and the artist Jahzzar. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.